Hello, greetings all, and a warm welcome. We're going to put on our conspiracy hats today and talk a little about the Flavian dynasty again and their connection to Christianity. And I wanted to do this because I think it is interesting, and I know this is pretty speculative, but it's really interesting how Flavius, Titus Flavius, and Vespasian continue to impact the church, the Catholic Church, and the empire in the East long after, of course, their dynasty went away. And what actually happens is, the continuation of that dynasty there really under Christianity. This has portentous resonance here with the work of people like Joseph Atwell and myself and James Valiant in trying to link Titus Flavius with Jesus Christ himself, but also to show here that the Christians, after the Nicene Creed was formulated and signed and so on, still really looked at the Flavian dynasty as a massive influence. Constantine, as we're going to see, viewed the Flavian dynasty almost as his own family, which is really interesting. I don't know whether we can really say that these guys knew the ins and outs of what I've been writing about. And of course, it's not my work. I never, ever could possibly say that this stuff ever came from me. I'm just synthesizing others' works here and trying to compile them and maybe add a little detail here and there, a little argumentation, but here we go. The imperial name Flavius here, and how, where, and why it was used. So the origins here, the Flavian dynasty, of course, 69 to 96 CE, three emperors, originated with the Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. These three emperors restored order after the civil wars of 69 CE. In the Roman imagination, Flavius became associated with stability, legitimacy, and divine favour. At this early stage, the name was a genuine family surname, gens Flavia, but after the dynasty's fall in 96 CE, later rulers remembered it as a symbol of renewal and lawful succession. This early connection to imperial restoration laid the foundation for its later revival. So, let's sink in. Emperors bearing Flavius, 69 to 93, 3 of 3, 100%. So, hang on, yes, we're going to see, the Dormant century is here. So, 96 to 284 CE, when things were still largely Roman, and there was obviously a very entrenched Roman, pagan, all the worshipping of the Roman gods and so on, stuff like this. So Christianity had not yet taken hold, but it was there. And of course, we know that the Roman influence on stuff like the Gospel writings, the Greco-Roman influence, was absolutely formidable. It looks as though, I believe, that there was some kind of hand at work steering things as soon as Christianity came to Rome there, and a kind of hijacking of this Jewish messianic celestial god type character logos into something that then began to take on a human form. But there was something fishy about what was going on, because we know the Titus typology is right there in Jesus's ministry, and it's too certain to be a coincidence. There are too many clues there, too many typological sequential patterns, as I've been through in my work, and in the work, I should say. So for nearly 2 centuries after Domitian, Flavius went out of political fashion. A few minor nobles and military men used it, but no ruling emperors did. The name remained dormant until the late 3rd century. Okay, so the approximate use here, 5 or 6 of about 50 emperors, roughly 10%. So revival under Diocletian and Constantine, that can't be right, 50 emperors, I don't know what that means. I think forget about that. Just rub that. It's what we're talking about is the Constantine. The moment Constantine comes into power here. So the great administrative reformer Diocletian and his colleague Constantus Chlorius reintroduced Flavius as a praenomen, an official imperial first name rather than a family name. Constantine's son, Constantine the Great, inherited it as Flavius Valerius Constantinus Augustus. Okay, this marked a turning point. From Constantine onwards, Flavius no longer meant family descent. It had become a title of legitimacy. Okay, this emperor, the emperor's badge of lawful, divinely sanctioned rule. So here we go. Emperors bearing Flavius from 284 to 337 CE. All 6 major emperors had this name Flavius. Okay, then Constantine and Theodosius, the Constantine and Theodosian dynasties. So 337 to 395 CE. So go a little further on now, a few decades onwards from this. Constantine's sons and successors continued the tradition. Even every emperor from Constantinus II, to Theodosius I began his name with Flavius. The name appeared on coins, inscriptions, and decrees, symbolizing continuity with Constantine's Christian revolution, right? So used in both the east and the western halves of the empire here 100% of the time. So both the emperors of the Eastern kind of Orthodox Church in Byzantium and the West all had these names. East and West divisions and the height of the use here, the height of the use. So after Theodosius I's death, the empire split into East and West. In both realms, Flavius was a legal element of the emperor's title. Every Western ruler, from Honorius to Romulus Augustulus, and every Eastern ruler from Arcadius to Zeno carried the name, right? So Western Empire 395 to 476, number of emperors 13, with Flavius 13, 100%. Eastern Empire again, all the way up to 476, 11 of them now, and 11 carried this name. So through the 4th and 5th centuries, 100%. Early Byzantine continuation here, so up to 641. When the Western Empire fell, the Eastern emperors kept the Roman titulature, that's it. Names like Flavius, Anastasius, Flavius Justinanus, and Flavius Heraclius appear on coins and legal documents. During this period, Flavius reached its longest continuous use in history, spanning nearly 4 centuries. Estimated 30 to 35 emperors here, nearly all used Flavius, 90%. So all I'm trying to say here is basically, so after this is a little, so up until 1453 now, after Greek replaced Latin in official administration, the form Flavius faded from everyday speech but remained on some seals and honorary titles. Okay, so by the 9th and to 11th centuries, emperors identified themselves with Greek titles like Basileus and Autocrator instead of Latin names, right? So it goes down to 20 to 25% after this point. But so we have up until 641, basically most of the emperors' names had Flavius in them. Now, why this fixation on Flavius? It was it meant, of course, the restoration after a civil war, the legitimacy and divine sanction here, and this sanction after this, the year of the 4 emperors and so on, and the fight here with Judea, and then bringing back all of this money and these huge, immense public projects like the Colosseum were seen as a new beginning for Rome, a new stamp of divine approval, and a sacred legacy now. So it's very important for Romans. The Byzantine Greek phase here, ceremonial and archaic, using the Flavius still though, memory of Christian Roman unity. Okay, so why did it endure for so long? It's so interesting just to ask these questions. And with what we know, if you've seen some more of my videos there's, I think, this is obviously entirely circumstantial, but it shows you how close the Flavian, this mold and the influences here with this, the legacy here were. And so in the West, it was a legal necessity. In the East, it became, a sacred memory. Across both, Flavius stood for legitimacy, continuity, and divine right to rule, the name by which Rome's emperors proclaimed themselves heirs to both the Caesars and to Constantine the Great. So, it's worth mentioning this. It's not a strong piece of evidence. I don't know. I don't have a clue whether certain emperors knew this or not, but it must have been going around at the time. Now we have a couple of inscriptions here, so I'm going to go quickly. So I was going to do a separate video for this, but I think I'll just do this in this one. Now there are two inscriptions as well. So there's a fair amount of archaeological evidence here that helps us to merge the Flavian Restoration inscription here. So Rome, 324 to 326, it came around, the Flavian Restoration inscription, and it says this: to our Lord Flavius Valerius Constantine, pious, fortunate, and unconquered Augustus, the Senate of people of Rome, dedicate this to the restorer and renewer of the Flavian race. Right, so this is Constantine's father here, I think, Flavius Valerius Constantine. It was erected on or near Coronal Hill by the Senate and the people of Rome. The inscription here again of Constantine to his spellum in Umbria, around 333-35 now. The translation here goes like this: Imperatus Caesar Flavius Constantine the Great Augustus, as you have requested, we decree that a temple of our Flavian family be built, provided that it involve no blood, rites, or sacrifices. That's interesting, isn't it? The city shall be called Flavia Constans. So we have a real reverence for the Flavian genus here, the gens Flavia. I just wanted to put that out again. I covered this, was a part of this once, but these guys were restorers of the state. Remember, brought back a lot of money pilfered from Judea and Jerusalem and so on, and were able to do a lot with it. 300 years later, you get Constantine, and then a running succession for 300-400 years of this Flavian name being used. I thought it was just worth going into that. It's not, again, conspiracy hats on. I just wonder whether some people knew about this connection and people had read and realized Josephus, the Bible, Luke. Because it's, once you see it, you really see it, and it's right there. Remember, the coins and so on used anchors and fish, which are some of the earliest Christian symbols as well. We have very highly positioned members of the Flavian family, Domitilla, and so on, who were related straight to Clement, maybe of Rome here, the Clemens, Titus Flavius Clement and Clemens, closely associated with Titus, and they appear to be the first Christians as well. So all worth thinking about. I'll leave that there. Thank you.